Hello, welcome to London, the capital of the UK, but also in many ways one of the major capitals of the global conspiracy. So much comes out of here. I'm in London, well, of course I am, I'm standing here, but I'm in London for a reason. I've been doing some television interviews in mainstream television, and it's been very successful in getting the information out. And while I was here, I thought I'd take a tour of the system, because the control system that operates globally has certain elements to it which all work as one unit. And of all the places I've been in all the world, I don't think I've come across, I can't think of anywhere I've come across where those elements were in such close proximity as they are here. There's the Houses of Parliament, of course, behind me in Big Ben, but in this little area that we're going to go on this this tour, this walk around now, are all the elements of the system, very, very close together. And it's a good way of explaining how they all fit and how they all work as one unit. Nice day as well. Well, when you're going around London or any town in Britain, city in Britain, in fact increasingly around the world, America, etc., then these are everywhere. These cameras which are keeping surveillance on the population 24/7. So we're having a camera on the cameras now. There's someone behind that. Hello, all right then. How's the kids? Good, good. And what we are seeing is the Orwellian state unfolding before our eyes. And the excuse is terrorism, right? Protecting people from terrorists. Well, if you take out the terrorist events that were instigated by the very force, the very network that is saying we must have cameras to protect you from terrorists, i.e. 9/11, the London bombings, etc., then what is left in terms of numbers? Horrible as a single person is in this sense, but how many people are left that are suffering from terrorist attacks? Of course, if you count as they are terrorist attacks like pepper bombing Libya and Afghanistan and the drone killings around the Middle and Near East, well, of course, that's again being done by those who are saying we must put these things up to protect you from terrorism. But you take out, if you might call, genuine terrorism, not instigated by the state, and the number of people that are left in terms of numbers that are affected is tiny compared with the number of people dying of hunger and malnutrition. The biggest killer in America is the treatment. If you take in medical errors, drug side effect, fatalities, the fatal diseases or things that people catch in hospitals when they've gone in to be cured, and all those things, if you put them together, the biggest cause of death in America is the treatment. So why aren't we arresting doctors and drug company executives? Of course, because it's not like that. And this has nothing to do with terrorism. It's to do with building a surveillance system, getting more and more detailed and more sophisticated every day to keep the population under constant surveillance, to make sure that as more and more people, and we head towards critical mass, have seen, whoa, I can see what's going on, that everything's in place to stop that actually having an effect. This is what it's all about. And they reckon, some figures are that walking around the average city and town in Britain, you will pass in the average day more than 300 cameras. And that is to protect people from terrorism? Yeah, okay. Well, I'm starting this journey down the pyramid of power, not at a place of elected politicians, but here at Buckingham Palace. where the Queen and the royal family of Britain live, of course. And I'm using this to symbolize what is at the top of the, if you like, the human pyramid level of this. And that is a network of interbreeding bloodlines which go back to the ancient world. And they perceive themselves to be different for a remarkable reason. And that is that what we call royalty and aristocracy, the divine right to rule and all that stuff, came from the fact that there was an interbreeding in the ancient world between a non-human force, shall we say, and a human force, creating a hybrid bloodline. And that hybrid bloodline decided that it was special. It was the bloodline of the gods. For instance, the Chinese emperors used to claim the right to be emperor because of their descendants from the serpent gods. And you see the same theme all over the world. And so, over the years, this royal bloodline has passed through history until there came a point in most countries where the people weren't going to be dictated to by an overt, in-your-face dictator called a king or a queen. And we went into a form of what they called democracy, which they use as an interchangeable term with freedom. And if you go into it, well, that's absolute nonsense. They're not interchangeable at all. And so the bloodline stayed, if you like, overtly royal in situations like this with the British royal family and the Spanish royal family and one or two others around the world. But what it really did was went underground. It went in the sense that it went into dark suits. It went into banking, it went into business and corporations, it went into all these institutions of control that are not associated by the public with royalty, but those bloodlines are those same former overtly royal bloodlines. And they sit on top of the banking system, the political system, the intelligence agencies, the military, the media at ownership level. And they push down through these different institutions the same incessant policy, which is of incessant centralization of power. Because compared with the global population of more than 7 billion, there's not that many of them. In fact, they're very, very few at the inner of the inner core. They have to compartmentalize knowledge of their agenda. And therefore, they only allow people that are daily in their jobs without knowing, contributing to this agenda for a fascist, global, authoritarian, Orwellian state, that are contributing to that every day, which their children and grandchildren will have to live in, but they don't know they're doing that because they're making contribution A, and in and of itself, that can be seemingly innocent. But when you connect it to contribution B and C and D at other levels of the pyramid and in other pyramids of institutions of media and politics and all the rest of it, then it takes on anything but an innocent situation. It's very sinister indeed. And so what they've manipulated us to do, this bloodline network acting at the top of the pyramid, is to, without knowing, build our own prison. And we're seeing this unfold with what we've just seen, the cameras, the security, the 24/7 surveillance, which is far more intense than ever is accepted in the public domain. Things they say, oh, they can't do that, it's illegal. They don't care about legal, they do it anyway. And so this is what's at the top of the pyramid. And we're going to move on to another place now, which again is the next level down from the bloodline in the pyramid, and still not a politician or an elected person in sight. Well, we're on our way to the next, if you like, level of the pyramid, but just passing this scene here, and it really is, well, for me, maybe it's me, breathtaking. You've got these guys here. They are, to use a wide term, the Queen's troops. You know, usually they have the red and the black uniforms. They've got grey coats on today, and they stand here in their big hats, and they can't move up to a certain point, and then they just break into this march up and down in unison with each other. Then they come back and stand in a still position again. And you know, these guys are not just ceremonial. They're deployed to wars. Goodness knows how many, you know, Britain fights. They're deployed to wars and, you know, put their lives in danger and kill other people. But then they come back here and they do this. And it's incredible. If you want to see how robotic people can be made to be by orders and by programming, well, just watch this when it starts. You can see them now just standing there, just doing nothing, not moving anything. And then they do this little march up and down, and it goes on all through their time that they're there. Then some others come and do the bloody same. I mean, the world is bloody mad, you know. And we're in the epicenter of bloody madness in so many ways. We really are. Well, here I am now at the next stage of this pyramid or edifice of power, and there's still not a politician in sight. There's still not a prime minister in sight, because behind me is the headquarters of MI6, Her Majesty's Secret Service, Her Majesty's MI6. Just down the road there, we just passed it, is MI5. MI5 is the domestic security, I say, manipulation agency, and MI6 is supposed to be the overseas British security intelligence agency. Now, readers of my books and people who have become aware in other ways of this whole deal will immediately recognize that the shape of the building alone is a statement, because this bloodline, this network, has a language of its own called symbolism. And I've explained this in my books and at the Wembley event, but very quickly, I am now speaking and you're hearing, but I am not sending words to you across the ether. I'm sending a vibrational information field vibrated into existence by my vocal cords, and you are decoding it through the ear senses from vibrational information into electrical information, which goes to the brain to be decoded into what we call language. In the same way, a symbol, anything visual, is an information field. And that can enter the brain through the sight senses, where most of the information enters the brain. But because I'm speaking, and I'm speaking in a frequency band of your conscious mind, you can hear me speaking, you know my words are going in, they're conscious. Whereas visual information, unless it actually, you consciously register it, is going in unseen. Well, if you know what I mean, in terms of it's peripheral, it's not what you're aware of. It's going in unknown, if you like, into the subconscious. So through symbolism, you can, it's a gateway to access people's sense of reality without them even realizing you're doing it. Subliminal advertising is a classic. That's what that's doing, exactly that process. So this language of symbolism is very important. It's not just for, you know, show. It's because it's a language that can get into the human mind. And one of their symbols is the pyramid with the capstone missing, or the pyramid with the capstone raised above it with an eye on it, the all-seeing eye. That's what you see on the dollar bill, and you see it in so many different situations. That's basically, if you look at it, the feel of that MI6 building. So at this point in our journey down this edifice of power, we've hit the intelligence agencies. And the intelligence agencies are also fundamentally connected and expressions of the secret society network. The secret society network, you see or are aware of, there's loads of secret societies. Some of them are known, like the Freemasons and stuff like that. Others are so elite and so in the shadows, people don't even know they exist in the normal course of life. But they operate as one unit. And like everything, again, here we go, as in a pyramid, like most organizations today are pyramids, almost every single one, it means the few at the top in the higher degrees and there are degrees above the official degrees that most people, even in the secret society, don't know exist. The people in the higher degrees know far more about what that organization, that secret society is about, than the people in the lower degrees. And you're only allowed to go up if you are chosen as someone who's safe and someone who's not going to, you know, be a problem, is going to serve the agenda. And the secret societies run the intelligence agencies. And this connects into something else, because MI5, MI6, why MI? It stands for Military Intelligence 5 and Military Intelligence 6. In other words, although these are supposed to be, or the public perception of them is that these are civilian, you know, like James Bond and all that stuff, they are civilian agencies. They're not. They're military agencies who work in conjunction with the military. This happens not only in this country, it happens in America with the National Security Agency and the CIA and all this stuff. They're all connected into the military, although they're supposed to be civilian. And the military and the intelligence agencies, along with the upper levels of the secret societies, are the next level down after the bloodline hierarchy. And the next place we're going to go is connected, well, very much to the military. Okay, this is our next point in the system, if you like, which connects into MI6, MI5, and that's the Ministry of Defense building. Obviously, the American equivalent is the Pentagon. And this is where they decide who they're going to attack and pepper bomb next, and how they're going to do it, and all the rest of it. And the attacks and the strategies are all worked out long in advance. The role of politicians overwhelmingly is, even in government, is not to decide if it's going to happen, but simply to sell it to the public. People like Blair, Bush, Obama, and Cameron, etc. We're filming in an area, in fact we're filming in an area all the way today, where you have to get permission and all that stuff and bits of paper. We've just been told by a policeman outside a royal palace that we can't film there without having permission from the royal household. We're paying for those frickin' buildings, and we're paying for the pavement we were standing on, but we can't bloody film, they say, because they say we can't. This is where the true power is. It's nothing to do with people. It's these bloodlines, and they are a law unto their bloody selves. Their law is, well, I can do it, so I will. That's their law. And so this is another level of the pyramid, where they send people out, young men and women, to be killed and kill others in pursuit of this agenda, which is orchestrated from the top of the pyramid, the bloodlines and the entities which the bloodlines serve, the entities that operate outside of human sight. And in there, over the decades, decisions have been made which have slaughtered untold numbers of people worldwide. And notice, we still have yet to get to a level of the pyramid where there are any politicians or any voters. Okay, behind me is Westminster Abbey, where many of the royals get married and stuff like that. And the Queen is head of the Church of England, and it's all connected. And Westminster Abbey, I'm using this to symbolize that level of the pyramid where we find religion. In fact, it permeates the pyramid in so many ways. I mean, still today, despite everything, and there's been so much and so much more to come, the Roman Catholic Church is supposed to have 1.2 billion advocates or followers. And the role of religion, not just Christianity, Islam, Judaism, all of them, is to give people a belief system that is incredibly narrow, that makes them down here and whatever they're worshipping up there. So it's just little me, I have no power. And it's there as the control system. I mean, I described years ago religion as the greatest form of mind control ever invented, and it is. Because, you know, we are infinite awareness, living within infinite possibility, and yet what religion does is tell us that there is a tiny little story here, and between the covers of this book, or this book, whichever one it is all you need to know, and you mustn't deviate from it because God won't like it, and all this rubbish that people are programmed to believe in. And because of its role, what religion is the outer public face of the secret society network. This is why when you look around churches, and particularly cathedrals that were built and designed by people like the Knights Templar, one of these major secret societies in the web, you find secret society symbolism. Now look at it. I mean, it's a giveaway there. There's the Twin Towers. The Twin Towers, that's symbolic of the Twin Towers that were supposed to be outside of the mythical King Solomon's temple. And you know, we need to go into this in another time, and I do in the books, but the Twin Towers on 9/11, that was all symbolism. The Twin Towers is a massive symbol. If you go to the Mother Lodge of Freemasonry in Great Queen Street in London, you'll see inside depictions of the Twin Towers, and this is a classic depiction. And when you go into these cathedrals, Westminster Abbey included, you see the black and white squares on the floor. It's a Freemasonic secret society floor, because it is an expression of that. So when you get to things like the Vatican, which has control of the minds of so many worldwide, and is a den of absolute bloody iniquity, and so much to come out, it's unbelievable about that church and what goes on. When you go to the Vatican, the inner core worships Satanism. They're Satanists, and then out comes the public face, which is mild Satanism. If you look at Satanism and the background to it in depth, and then you look at the rituals of the church that people go and do all the time, it's just a publicly acceptable version of that. You know, Satanists, you know, they literally sacrifice people and drink the blood. Well, you know, the Eucharist, where they eat the body and drink the blood of Christ, it's just a publicly acceptable version of the same thing. But energetically, it is extremely negative for the people that are partaking in it, but they don't know why, because you know, they don't realize that all this stuff is happening on levels that we can't see when these rituals are taking place. So this is a massive level of the pyramid, religion, where they grasp the minds of people, they make them feel guilty, they make them feel small, and they make them look up, which is what they want. But they're not looking up to God, they're looking up to the top of the pyramid, where the real power lies in terms of directing their lives. But the real power really lies when we actually open our eyes and see how it all fits together. It lies not up there, but at the bottom of the pyramid, because we're holding this edifice together. When we walk away, it's over. Okay. Well, here we are at last, as we go down this pyramid, at a point where you might call politics, except not really politics, because we're talking about the European Union, which is not a political union, it is a bureaucratic union. The politics and the European Parliament are just window dressing. They're just there to give the impression of democracy and will of the people, when actually it's the will of the dark suit bureaucrats in Brussels. Now, this building is very, very symbolic in the way the power structure and the power dynamic is moving, because this used to be the headquarters of the British Conservative Party, the party of the current Prime Minister David Cameron, but it's now called Europe House, and it is the London headquarters of the European Union, the European Commission. That's the bureaucratic part of the so-called European Union, which dictates policy in effect to the politicians. And what happens is the bureaucrats in Brussels that this building represents, they come up with policy. They discuss them with something called the Council of Ministers, which are representatives of European governments, and then they bring it into legislation, in theory, through a pathetic European Parliament, and much that doesn't go through there. But the European Parliament is only there as a symbol to kid the people that the European Union is actually so-called democratic, and that they're having a say in what goes on there. They're having no say in what goes on there. And the reason that I've started in the pyramid here and not at Westminster or Downing Street is because this is where the power is. Something like 70–75% of legislation that becomes law in Britain now is not passed by decisions made in Britain. It's passed and rubber stamped by decisions or on decisions made in Brussels by dark-suited bureaucrats. And when there's a few of you and you want to control the mass, then what you need to do is constantly centralize decision making. And at every point you centralize, fewer and fewer people are making more and more decisions over more and more people. So you had one time a tribal situation where people in the tribe decided what happened in the tribe. Then loads and loads and loads of tribes were brought together and called nations. And now nations are being brought together in unions. And what is the European Union? They plan for North America, they plan for all around the world. And to bring them into being, they're using the same scam that they did with the European Union, which is let's tell them it's a free trade zone, just about trade, and then stepping stone, totalitarian, tiptoe as I call it, will add the centralisation of power until where we are today, where the European Union has, shall we say, representatives and agencies throughout Europe which are known as national governments, because their power is being neutered by the day. So this is the real power centre in Europe, the European Union. And everything that goes on around here politically is just going through the motions overwhelmingly. Well, we're going now to the official home of the Prime Minister, Britain's version of the White House. Not as impressive, but same theme. And we're a heck of a long way down this pyramid before we meet in the Prime Minister of the country. That's how the system works. Now at last, after all these stages down the pyramid, we're actually getting to someone who is, in theory, elected the Prime Minister of Britain. This is Downing Street. I came along here when I was a little kid in the 50s. My first visit to London. Came down on a steam train, that's how long it was ago. And you could walk up there. I remember walking up there and with my dad and my mother and looking across the little road at Downing Street. This is as far as you can get now. It's all gated off, it's all fenced off, it's all security and what have you. And it's very symbolic of the way it's all, the people running countries and institutions are pulling further and further and further away from the people, becoming a total law unto themselves. And the Prime Minister, Cameron, Blair, whoever it is, they are gophers. They are put into power by the bloodlines, because what happens is the bloodlines control the major parties which have any chance of forming a government. So whichever it is, in this country, Labour or Conservative, in America, for instance, Republican or Democrat, they are answering to the same masters, although they appear to be different. That's just to kid the people that people have choice and they're deciding their own government. They're not. And this is why when Obama, Mr. Change, follows Bush, Mr. Change becomes Bush on steroids. Same agenda. Same with Cameron in this country, in Britain. You have a situation where he's just Tony Blair, although he's in a different party. He's just Tony Blair with a face transplant. And they're put in there to run and introduce through legislation and political decision making to put into action the agenda that comes from the shadows, the bloodline shadows of secret societies and the intelligence agencies and the Ministry of Defence we saw earlier. Put that into practice by passing legislation and making it legal. And that's another thing, legal. What is legal? People say, oh, well, yeah, what was the bombing of Libya legal? Was the invasion of Iraq legal? Legal? Why are we asking if it's legal for? We should be asking if it's right, if it's fair, if it's just, if it's moral. And no, it's none of those things. What is legal? This is what legal is. It's a bunch of criminals in dark suits voting to make their own criminality non-prosecutable. That's what it is. That's what legal is. Legal, irrelevant. This what should make decisions, not frickin' legal. Anyway, that's what they do because they control the law as well. So this is Downing Street, and the guy, whoever's in there, is a puppet. Oh, and by the way, we saw the Ministry of Defence earlier. That's over there. There are tunnels under this road. In fact, London's crisscrossed with tunnels, and so people move between all these ministries. They can do without being seen in public, so no one knows they've actually met. They can go in one building, and through the underground tunnels, they go into another building, and all the rest of it. And under here is a massive bunker run by the Ministry of Defence, and its code name is Pindar. Now, people reading my books will know that Pindar is also the code name of a major inner circle member of these bloodlines. And someone told me who has been on the inside that Pindar means penis of the dragon, which is interesting because in Downing Street, at any point, whoever wins the election, there's always a penis living there, and there's one next door living next door to him called the Chancellor of the Exchequer, and there's dragons and snakes galore over bloody there. So it's kind of symbolic, you know, synchronicity. It's amazing, isn't it? Anyway, this is Downing Street, and we'll go off somewhere else. And then there's the policemen. You see, the police are there. Once things have been made legal, I vote to make my criminality legal. Okay, the ayes have it. And once they've done that, then the police, their job is to impose upon the public what they've made legal, even though it's a load of bollocks, even though it's killing people, whatever. It's unbelievable. We do live in a madhouse. And once you realise that, it all makes bloody sense. Now, as we just come down from Downing Street and across from the Ministry of Defence on the other side of the road, that's the cenotaph. It says on it, the glorious dead. The glorious dead refers to the thousands and thousands of people who have died in wars which the bloodlines have created to change the face of human society. You never do it quicker than a war. You look at the world after World War I and after World War II, power was in dramatically fewer hands than it was before. And to bring that about, you need your glorious dead, which are the people who are owning a pittance, who are sent off in uniform to fight wars, while these people over here in the Ministry of Defence sit on their arses in their uniforms, telling people to go and do this and go and do that. People over here in Downing Street and other places, they're saying, we've made legal going in and killing and pepper bombing another load of people in this era with brown faces, in other eras in Europe and around the world with a great British Empire, and it's all built on the glorious fricking dead who come home from these wars, if they do come home, to poverty and joblessness and all the rest of it. It's unbelievable. We have to stop being pawns in this game, and therefore we have to stop, first of all, people of the military, stop being the glorious dead, and stop making other people dead in other bloody countries. Come on, it's ridiculous what's going on here. And every year in this area here, you have the people that have sent people out to die and kill others, people like Cameron and Blair and these people, and they fill here and the bloody royals turn up, the bloody bloodline, and they put wreaths on that cenotaph. Oh, the dead. And then people, old people who fought in the wars, who are now aged and infirm, they kind of march as best they can past the cenotaph, remembering their colleagues and all the rest of it. And how these people like Blair, a war criminal, Cameron, a war criminal, can possibly have the nerve to put wreaths on this cenotaph every year is unbelievable. But they have no shame. If they had, they wouldn't do what they bloody do. You see that? Cabinet war rooms. Tell you what the cabinet war rooms is. That's people who've overwhelmingly never seen a gun fired in anger, right? And deciding, hey, deciding other people are going to go and die and kill other people, eh? Dark suit assassins who, if they were put in danger, they'd cancel the bloody laxative bill overnight. So here we are at the so-called Mother of Parliaments. I could have other descriptions, but let's call it Mother of Parliaments. It's the place that is equivalent to Capitol Hill, and it's one step down from the Prime Minister and the government level. And this is called the Palace of Westminster. And it's basically a waste of space. I've mentioned already how much legislation that becomes law in Britain doesn't start out here at all. It starts out in Brussels with bureaucrats, and some starts out down the road in Downing Street, though not that much. And these people just vote it into law. And what you've got around the world now, the Republicans and the Democrats and the Labour, Conservative and Liberal Democrats here, is basically you've got all these different parties, did I say different? That are standing on the same postage stamp basically in terms of policy. And they therefore have this consensus to pass this legislation which takes us down the road to the Orwellian state and all the other stuff that I talk about. Now, these are supposed to be representatives of the people, but they're not. Because of this pyramid structure, this is how politics works. You want to become a politician. It works anywhere in the world like this. You want to become a politician, okay? You want to get into government. So, okay, I'll stand as an independent and I'll be my own person. Well, you can't do that and have almost, very rarely, but almost no chance of winning an election because you don't have the party machine behind you, you don't have the funding behind you, you don't have the media coverage behind you, which comes with being part of the party machine. And so if you want to be a politician and get into government and make a difference in the world, then you've got to join a party. Now, to join the party, that's easy. You pay your subscription and you sign your form. But if you want to get into here, then you have to be selected by the party to represent a constituency or a state, whatever. To do that, you have got to be acceptable to the party hierarchy at the top of the party pyramid. And so you have to tell the people that question you or are deciding if you can represent the party and possibly get into one of these places, you've got to tell the party what it wants to hear. And you've got to promise that you will follow the party line. Right, so you do that and you get elected. And in most constituencies and almost, most states, if you've got a certain colour rosette on representing a certain party, you're pretty sure to get in. There are a few marginal states where it's a bit, is it or not? But in most of them, they're called safe seats. You get your party to get you to stand in an election, you're bloody sure that you're gonna win because of the nature of the people and how they vote in that area. So then you come here and you want to get into government, or you want to get high in the party at Westminster that you represent. To do that, you have to, again, do what the pyramid of the party demands that you do. Because if you don't, then you won't progress in the party because you are being your own man, your own woman. They don't want that. And they have people called whips. And their job is to get people, when there's a vote, they have what they call line whips, 1-line whip, 2-line whip, 3-line whip. 3-line whip means the party's telling you you will vote the way the party's telling you or the government's telling you or whatever. And if you want to represent your people or represent your own feelings about the issue, then you are defying the whips. You're not speaking your truth, representing the people you're supposed to represent. You are defying the whips. And the whips come along and they say, look, if you don't vote with the party, that's the end of your political career in this party. You're not going to progress. And in some areas, and this is far from uncommon, very far, they'll know something about you that you don't want the public to know. And it's like, well, it would be terrible if this came out, wouldn't it? All right, well, how do you want me to vote? And this is how it works. And this is called representation of the people. It's a load of bloody nonsense. And what you have here are voting fodder. They just go through what they call the lobby here, or they vote, in other words. And it's like, oh, there, the ayes have it. No, the ayes don't have it. The people who've decided the legislation and the way the law is going to change and have got this fodder just to go through in enough numbers to vote for it, they have it, and the people have it because they have to live under the changes that have been made to the society in which they live. And so many laws, so many regulations are now being voted in, like it's a tidal wave of them because the Orwellian state's moving in. And like I said earlier, once this farce of a process has happened, then the law enforcement come in their uniforms and they enforce the law, the legal law. Actually, legal and law are not the same thing in my view, but they impose the legislation upon the people. Extraordinary. But it's democracy, ladies and gentlemen. It's freedom. Wouldn't it be great if we, or wouldn't it be terrible if we lived in a tyranny? Phew, pew. Now, having got this far, the way this edifice survives is because of something represented in this area outside Parliament. It's very, very quiet today. There's only one film crew, television film crew, waiting over there for some reporter to come along and tell the people bollocks. Anyway, what this area is where when there's a big story or a big vote going on there, this place is packed with film crews and journalists talking to the world and talking to Britain. And this edifice of top-down hierarchical tyranny survives because of these people and the global mainstream media in general. Because if I can uncover all this stuff, so can they. But instead of uncovering it, they ridicule it, and they are the public relations office. They are the promotion company of the conspiracy. And I've worked in journalism for a long time with the BBC and with newspapers, radio, the whole shebang, a long time ago now. And journalists don't overwhelmingly do this. One or two are in on it. The vast majority tell the story that the power structure wants the people to believe because they are ignorant of what's going on. They are uninformed, they are unresearched, and when you're in that situation, you have one option in terms of providing information for the public, and that is taking what they say, taking what the Prime Minister says, taking what the European Union says, taking what MI6 and MI5 say, taking what the church says, and delivering it as news when it's just a repetition of the official version of everything. And we call it journalism. It is not. It is repeating. It is the repetition of the official story night after night after night after night. And if the media were a true expression of journalism, none of this would be going on because it would have been exposed a long time ago. Shame on you, because you've got kids and grandkids as well, and you're going to have to, they and you are going to have to live in the society that from your ignorance and your silence you are allowing to come in. And another thing, this is so many ironies. Here's another irony. The very media that has become nothing more than the mouthpiece of the official version of everything is now being crushed in terms of its freedom by things like the Leveson inquiry in this country and other press laws and what have you. Television is being squeezed in what it can say and what it can't say. And so they ridicule and dismiss a conspiracy when it's actually stitching up their profession. Oh, take me home, mother, it's mad down here. Okay, we've got one more place to go. And like, we shouldn't be filming around here, you know. Oh, it's naughty, even though we pay for all this stuff. So when we get where we're going for the last shoot, there'll be policemen around and stuff like that. They might leave us alone. In the past, they haven't, shall I say. I've had some nice conversations here with policemen and policewomen. So just going to go there. So how long we go on filming, I don't know, but we're going to keep going, see where we go, because this is a place now, having explained all this great evidence of power, all this top-down hierarchy, all this control. This next place is extremely relevant for where the people are in this pyramid. This is it's a very symbolic place that we're going to now. And what's most symbolic about it? There's nothing to see. I'll explain. For years after year after year, there was a guy sitting here called Brian Hoare. He started as a protest against what this country and America was doing in bombing children and slaughtering the innocent. And he sat in a chair here and he stayed here. And eventually he died of cancer. And he was hassled, he was beaten up, he was disgracefully treated by the police. And then he was followed by a lady called Babs Tucker. And Babs Tucker stayed here for a long time, and eventually, through the pressure of health and everything, she left. And here, but she still intends to keep going, I'm sure. But at the moment, not here. And there was a big display here of slaughtered kids, which was pointing out there and saying to these people, this is what you're doing. And highlighting what war is about and what the war on terror is about. And it got to the point with this buffoon, this professional buffoon of a mayor in London called Boris Johnson, who ran this campaign to get rid of them. It got to the point where there was just left the banners or the display, and Babs Tucker sitting here with nothing but an umbrella. And if this was very recently, and if you go onto YouTube or onto my website, you may have seen it already, you'll see when the police came in the night and the council officials came in the night in the early morning and hassled these people, and they had people on the ground, you know, putting handcuffs on them, doing nothing but protest against the tyranny that I've been describing in this walk around London. And they were saying the umbrella could be construed to be like a tent. So just sitting here in protest against the slaughter of the innocent around the world with an umbrella was not good enough for this edifice of power, because the people have to be crushed. Well, some of us ain't going to be crushed. And it's about time we came together and make sure that collectively we won't be crushed. Because this is a house of frickin' cards if we wake up. I've got one word to say to finish this. Freedom!